Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. Today we have the Honda Civic Type R. This is the 2019, rocking the Sonic Gray Pearl. I've personally been driving this car for about several months now, and I have some thoughts. Let's just go over, a quick tour, do an in-depth look at, how this car looks and how this car performs, and let's just get into it. So, starting off with the overall styling of this car. This is a touchy subject because I know people have their reserves around how this car looks. Some say that the design has been drafted up to look a little bit too edgy, a bit too complicated with too much going on. However, there are some that say that this correctly exhibits how a sports car should look, especially a JDM one, and I think it's the latter. I mean, I personally love the way this car looks. I understand that there are some flaws here and there, like the fake vents, of course, but nonetheless, I think it really kind of complements the Type R badge. I mean, you have the SI already, which already looks a little underwhelming. You don't want to stray too much into that water, because you want the Type R to live in its own world, and it frankly does, with its 20-inch rims and its hood scoop, a massive wing, and I think it all comes together quite nicely. So let's start off with the front, since we're here. You have the LED headlights, you have the fog lights, and of course you kind of have this this part, which normally it gets frowned upon because it just looks like very fake. It serves no purpose, of course, and however, we're looking at the 2019, and for the 2020, I believe Honda did rectify this by adding in a little bit of body strip paint match with the rest of the body and smoothed out the little slab here, so it does look a little bit better. Honda is listening to our complaints, so I like that they're kind of incorporating those changes as the years come. You have that iconic Type R badge, which I love the font, I love the way it looks, and the way it sits there on the bottom right, and then of course the big red Honda emblem. You have the opening for the intercooler right there, and then you have this front splitter. Be careful with this front splitter, especially when you're coming into a plaza that's kind of steep. Try to go as sideways as possible because it is sticking out quite a bit. And then you have the red lining, which kind of wraps around the entire body, carries around the side skirt, the edges of the rim, and it looks really nice. I like how how Honda put that there to kind of complement the Type R overall look. And this is full carbon fiber on the splitter, the side skirts, and of course the rear as well. You're paying less than $40,000 for a car like this. You're still getting a lot of cars, so I mean, you can kind of overlook the fact that you're not getting real carbon fiber on this car. It's fine. It's not a deal breaker in my opinion. Coming up, you have the hood scoop, and this hood scoop is functional, but the question is, how does it function? And there's a common misconception for this car in particular. I mean, the way we generally understand it is that air goes in and it helps boost the turbos, increasing its PSI, but it actually serves its own purpose. You can see here you have these vents on the side, and I'm not sure how much you can see in the video itself, but you have 3 openings here. And let's open up the hood and I'll show you guys exactly what's going on there. I wish this was a hydraulic press, but I mean, this is the Honda lineup. I guess they're saving that for the Acura, if they are. So you have this metal frame here, which is kind of closed off here, which ideally you would expect the opening of the hood scoop to be, and you can see here that no air can be released from the front here. However, there's openings on both sides, so what's happening is the air is actually flowing into the side here, out these vents, and carrying it forward onto the side of the body. So it serves as an aerodynamic advantage rather than boosting the turbos. So while we're here under the hood, might as well talk about this beautiful engine. We have an inline 4 2.0 liter spitting out 306 horsepower, 295 pound-feet of torque, and you get the peak torque at around 4,500 RPM. And of course you have VTEC, which has been carried over from generation to generation. And let me tell you guys, this engine performs flawlessly. It's smooth, but it pulls hard when it needs to. It's reliable as well. Again, I've been driving this car for several months now, and I can kind of attest to the performance of this engine. I like how Honda didn't even bother covering up the engine bay with any kind of plastic. They left it fully exposed, which kind of sticks to its roots. I mean, that's I like the way it looks. I just wish, again, they kind of put a hydraulic hood, at least in this Type R. Like, I understand it's not in the regular Civics, but I mean, again, we can overlook little things like that. Now, coming off to the side over here, let's talk about these tires for a minute. And this is also a little touchy subject. So these are 20-inch rims. They're sitting on Continental Sport Contact 6 performance tires. They're 245 on the width, 30 on the aspect ratio, and then 20 on the rim. And it's the 30 that concerns quite a bit of people, because you have this big rim sitting on these thin tires. So naturally, you can expect, I mean, you can't expect actually a comfortable ride in this car, nor can you expect any kind of longevity from these tires. They will wear out quite quickly. I would say maybe about 15,000 miles max, because given how thin these tires are, and then the kind of driving that you will naturally be doing in a car like this. I mean, you're not going to be slow commuting it. You're going to be driving it quite aggressively, so these tires will take the impact. However, they perform nicely, they grip hard, they handle well on turns. But just keep in mind that you're not gonna go I mean, it's a 4-door hatch. It has a comfort mode. It loosens up the dampers and the suspension. However, just don't expect any kind of like comfort, especially when you're going over any kind of bumps or things like that. You have these Brembo brakes as well, 4-piston, and the disc brake, which is drilled and slotted, so it looks nice. Honda claims that this has the stopping power of that of an NSX, which, I mean, I haven't personally tested, but I mean, that's something to write home about. So on the side here, again, you have those vents that we already spoke about. We have the side skirts, again, which carry over the red line as well, full carbon fiber. Although the full carbon fiber looks pretty well with this Sonic Gray Pearl color. I think it contrasts quite nicely, especially when you have the gray, the black, and the red. You know, it all stands out quite nicely. I would highly recommend going for this color if you are planning on it. I don't see that many on the road. It's usually like black or red, but I mean, this one I think sticks out the best. So coming around the rear, this I mean, we have quite a few topics to discuss here as well. Let's start off with this wing. It is a functional, I mean, it does generate a measurable amount of downforce, along with these vortex generators that are they're mounted on the roof here, and they look nice. The wing, I mean, I know some people have their reserves around how big it is and how it looks. I personally think it looks great. I mean, I think without it, the look just looks, you know, it's incomplete. I mean, this is kind of what, iconically, you know, if you're looking at the car from far away, you can tell it's a Type R from this wing, and I mean, you kind of need this here. You have gloss on the top here. It's kind of like a glossy material, and then you have this the painted paint matched edge as well. So this is quite a high wing. When you're sitting in the driver's seat and you're looking out the rear view window, it is there, it's visible, especially when you're reversing. But I mean, besides that, it's not that intrusive, I would say. I mean, you can still manage, no problem. And then it's not just this wing, but you also have this little spoiler, kind of deck spoiler, just coming out the bottom here. And so it's kind of a unique combination. I really love the way it was put together. Carrying forward, you have this Type R badge. Again, I love the way it looks. I love the font. The same taillights that you'll find in any other Civic in this generation. So nothing special there. I mean, and then you have these very frankly ugly looking fake vent. I wouldn't even call it a vent, because it doesn't have any opening. It's more like just a mesh slab of, you know, kind of a design element that's going on here, which a lot of people don't like it. And the front I don't mind as much, because they're a little bit smaller. These ones are slightly bigger, and they do stand out. So I really hope Honda rectifies this for the next generation, which I believe they will. So carrying forward, you have the rear splitter and the diffuser as well, and again, you can see the carbon fibers carried forward here. And then you have this tri-exhaust setup, which I mean, I think everyone's on the same page here. It's a little bit underwhelming. Frankly, I love the way it looks. I think it's a unique look. However, the sound doesn't match up to how the car looks and how you expect it to sound. And I know there's options out there. You know, you can throw on a custom exhaust. You can open it up a bit, but frankly, straight out of the factory and in stock configuration, you expect a little bit more. So I really hope for the next generation Honda fixes that as well. I think that's probably one of the main issues to address, if anything. So yeah, just a note, for the 2020 models and up, Honda did throw in the active exhaust coming into the cabin from the speakers. And you know, I mean, it's good that they kind of put that in there, because again, they're listening to our complaints. But however, it's artificial sound. We want the real deal, so hopefully Honda can rectify that. Coming around the side, you have the gas tank. It's premium recommended, by the way. You can put in regular, but I wouldn't recommend it. I mean, you get the full performance of this car when you throw in the premium, and it just performs all around much better. Now let's have a look at the inside. Okay, so we're inside the Civic Type R cabin. It looks like any other Civic in this generation. However, you have a big splash of red, as you can tell. So you have this red stitching on the inside of the steering wheel, this red padding over here, of course the red Honda emblem. You have the red line that kind of carries across the front dash here, and then on the side door panels as well. And I like how Honda put this here, because it kind of carries the flow, you know, of the outside of the car, how we have the red line across that wraps around the whole body. So I mean, this is good that they kind of kept that flow going. Of course, you have the full carbon fiber, only on the front of the car, like the front door panels. You don't have it on the rear. And then you have these red sport bucket seats. Frankly, these are one of probably the most comfortable sport seats that I've sat in. They're not too hard. I mean, they're like soft where it needs to be soft, but they're bolstered nicely. They hold you in well, regardless of your size. You have the Type R badge here. Just a quick note, this is suede right here, so you have to be very careful in terms of maintaining these seats. Don't put any coffee, don't put any pizza or any kind of food or anything like that on these seats. Use it only strictly for you know, seating purposes. They put these cloth here because you know, on those hot summer days when you're wearing shorts and things could get a little bit sticky, you know, you don't want the suede to get ruined, so the cloth will catch that. So but yeah, overall these seats are very nice. They're very cozy and they hold you in well. So that's there. However, there's no obviously there's no power functions on these seats. That's a given. Besides the suede, you also have Alcantara on the sides, the door panels here, and then also on the center console right here. So, and then you have the cup holders. You have the 7-inch display here with the MMI. You have the 6-speed manual, of course, which we'll get into. Right here we have the drive modes, the Type R badge with the chassis number, the electronic parking brake, and then the brake holder, of course. So let's start it up and let's see how it looks. So as you can see, you have a little bit more red here going on in the gauge cluster. I mean, Honda really had a small color palette to choose from. It's either red or black. However, I'm not complaining, it still looks nice. So let me try to see if I can show you guys what it sounds like from inside the cabin. So as you can tell, I mean, it's not that bad. It is a little underwhelming in some areas. You won't find any of the pop, snap, crackles, you know, that you're gonna find, nor are you gonna find that heavy like grumble that you're looking for here. But nonetheless, it's not as bad as people make it out to be. You really have to get into the car. I mean, even the video won't do justice, even if you have a really good mic. You really have to get into the car and drive it to kind of feel like, you know, it's not as bad as people make it out to be. However, it needs improvement. I will still say that. But nonetheless, one thing to note, as I've been driving this car for several months now, I do get a faint hint of like a little bit of droning in the cabin. So it might just be me, and I might just be nitpicking a little bit, but I do feel like it's there, and I hope that, you know, it can be cleared out in the next generation. So let's talk about this MMI again, red theme by default. The MMI is a little bit outdated now. I really hope, I mean, I'm sure that Honda will in the next generation throw on the new user interface that you find in the current generation Accord. But this one it's clearly outdated. I mean, it's a little bit laggy in some areas. It takes a few seconds to load up certain things. However, the navigation is not bad. It's decent. It works. I like how even if you don't have a route set and you're driving it, it still shows you the road that's upcoming. So I mean, that's good. It's a nice little touch. But anyways, most of you are going to be using Android Auto or Apple CarPlay, so this is kind of redundant anyways. But I mean, it's there for you if you don't connect your phone. You have physical buttons here dedicated for the most, you know, the features that you're going to use most primarily: your map, your audio, your phone, and then you have a dedicated back button, and then you have the volume knob, which of course a lot of people complained about in the previous I think 2016, 2017 and 2018 models. This wasn't present, so now it is. I mean, it's good that it's there. You have your physical fan buttons, because again, hitting this sometimes when you're driving it, it takes like a good 2 seconds to load up. Right now it's actually relatively fast the way that came up, but sometimes you just want those dedicated fan buttons to, you know, set the fan speed. You have dual climate control here. However, this is not the touring package, so you're not going to get some of the features that are missing in this car. However, I'm not missing those features because this is a sports car. It's a sports oriented car. You don't you're driver focused. I mean, sure, I mean, the safety features would be nice in this trim. However, because you're driver focused, you should already be more aware, especially if you're in a 6-speed manual. I mean, you tend to stay a little bit more focused than you would in an automatic and just aim the car, right? So this is let's talk about the shifter here. This is a 6-speed manual. So as you can see, they say it's a short shifter. However, I'm gonna be the one to say that it could be shorter, and I'm sure that people who have this throw on a shorter shifter. So it's there. This is the 2019 to 2020. You have that classic oval shift knob. This is the perfect circle. I mean, both are fine in my opinion, but the 2020 Plus kind of go back to the previous generation. You know, the old Civics that had the oval shaped shift knob. And it's a nice shifter. I mean, it shifts well, shifts smooth. We're going to take it out on the road. I'm going to show you guys how that looks and feels like. But one thing I would say is that the second gear has its issues here and there. I mean, I personally noticed it maybe once or twice throughout my term of driving this car. But even if you go online and you see what people are saying about this, I mean, it does for some reason grind in the second gear here and there, and it is like just a tad bit more, you know, more difficult to put it in the second gear. But it's not something that bothers. I'm sure, like, if you talk to anyone who owns this car, it doesn't really bother them at all. So with that being said, I think let's take this car out onto the road and let's see how it performs, and let me give you my thoughts and impressions about, you know, the drive of this car. Alright guys, let's start off by talking about that clutch. It's extremely lightweight. It's very easy to find that disengage or that bite point. It's about a 25% lift from the ground up, and that 25% is like plus or minus 10%. So it's not hard to miss. This car is very forgiving in terms of you know, trying to prevent you from stalling this car. So even if you're not an experienced manual driver and you're getting in this car, you know, for the first time with some practice, I don't think you're gonna stall this car unless you deliberately do so. So Hondas are known for their lightweight, easygoing clutches, and honestly, this car does justice to that. So it's very it gives a nice feel to drive this car in any kind of road condition. So you can be in, you know, traffic, or you can be in you can commute to work every day with this car, and this clutch paired with this 6-speed shifter allows you to kind of drive in those kind of road conditions and not just use it for spirited driving or aggressive racing or anything like that. So coming around to the shifter, it's a very smooth, very liquid shifter. It's just again, I mentioned it's a short shifter, but however, I do feel like it could be a little bit shorter, as I mentioned before. But I mean, it's not something to complain about. It's just nitpicking at this point. You can throw on a short shifter if you really feel, but what it comes with, honestly, it's a very smooth shifter. However, its Gear 2 does have its known issues here and there, but again, it's one of those things that you're not going to notice long-term owning this car. Probably just once or twice kind of thing. So yeah, again, the clutch paired with the 6-speed shifter allows you to kind of drive in any road conditions, and it just makes a fun drive overall. Let's talk about the fuel economy for a second. It's rated at 22 in the city and 28 on the highway. Combined, it's around like 25. My personal experience, I've been driving this car for several months now, and I've gotten, yeah, around like 23, 24. And again, that's on premium gas, so it gets you good mileage for what it is. Even in California, you know, with gas prices being around 4.3 to 4.5, you're looking at roughly $45, maybe $50 pushing it to fill up the tank. It's a 12.5 gallon tank, so again, just something to keep in mind. But it is a Civic. It is a 4-cylinder still. It is a 2.0 liter, so it's not gonna hurt your bank when filling up this car. Now, I talked about the anti-stalling mechanism in this car, and one other thing that Honda provided to kind of help you with everyday conditions, especially if you're parked on a hill, is hill assist. When you're parked on a hill and you put it into first and you're trying to roll out of the hill, and you let your foot off the clutch a little bit, the car's not going to roll back. It's going to try its best to hold it in place until you find that disengage point. So just it's very nice that they added that, and especially for those who live on a little bit of a steep hill or incline, or they have to park, you know, if they have no option to park on a flat surface. So that's there for you, and it makes it a lot easier to kind of take the car out. And another feature that they added, obviously, is the auto rev match. So when you downshift, the car will actually, you know, rev match. So you don't have to kind of intervene and put your foot, do any kind of heel and toe in this car. However, just to note, I mean, I'm sure this is the standard in every car that you have with auto rev match, is that you can't do it at low speeds. So obviously, the auto rev match is not going to help you in certain conditions, such as being stuck in traffic, you know, and if you're trying to go from 3 to 2, it's not going to do anything in those scenarios. But it will, if I show you in a second. Right now, I'm just on third right now, so if I pop it back to second, you can see here it just rev matched up to 4.5k. I'll put it down a second, auto rev match, so I didn't have to do any heel and toe. That's always fun, especially when you're driving a sports car. So as you can see, the shifting is smooth, as I mentioned before, and I'm no quick shifter, but this car kind of, it's very easy to shift in between the gears, and there's no kind of jitters, or there's no locking in place, you know, so that's good. This car has 3 drive modes, so let's talk about those for a second. The little shift to toggle between the drive modes is right here. So you have comfort mode, which I think majority of people who buy this car are barely even using, or they're not even touching that. The only situation in which I find myself putting it in comfort mode is when I actually throw people in the back seat, or on the passenger even, and it loosens up the dampers, loosens up the suspension a little bit, kind of tries to be a little bit more forgiving when you're hitting any kind of bumps or going over speed bumps, it's just it's one of those things. I think they just kind of threw it in. However, I don't find that it's that much more comfortable. I'm not sure if others disagree, but I've had people in the back seat, I've tossed it in comfort mode, and they still complain about the ride quality. You just got to keep in mind, again, you have those skinny tires, and then you have a kind of a stiff chassis, stiff overall configuration. Throwing it in comfort mode, loosening up the dampers, it's going to help you somewhat, but it's not going to kind of change the whole feel of the car, right? As we all know, I mean, it's kind of expected, especially in this kind of drivetrain and configuration. So just something to keep in mind. Sport mode, it's on by default when you start the car, and I absolutely love that, as every sports car should be. I mean, you shouldn't have to toggle to the sport mode, so it's great that they kind of put that in there by default. And then there's and in sport mode, obviously the damper suspension get a little bit more stiff, and as well as the steering, it's electric powered steering, so it changes based on the drive mode that you're in. So when you toss it in R+ mode, then everything becomes stiff. It just unleashes the full potential to track this car. So you have, you know, again, stiff damper, stiff suspension. Even your throttle response changes a little bit, and again, the steering gets even more heavier. So it's a very, and R+ mode is one of those things where you don't have to be driving on a certain road to kind of get the full feel of it. You don't have to be tracking this car in R+ mode. You can be R+ mode right now if I switch it in, and honestly, you'll get a nice feel out of it, and even in local roads, you can still have fun with it. So I'm gonna take it up to the canyon in a minute, and I'm going to show you guys like how the car, like overall my driving impressions of the car, especially with some spirited driving if I can, and just show you guys, you know, what it's all about. So now we're up in the canyon here, or just getting into it really, so I just wanted to talk about the overall driving impressions of this car. So I'm going to keep it in 5th, and I'm in R+ mode, so again, everything is stiff, but the ride quality, as I mentioned before, it's not that smooth. However, it's still fun because it's grippy. When you're coming around a corner, when you're making aggressive turns, the car will hold in place. Keep in mind, this is a front-wheel drive, so I mean, it's trying to go exactly where you point the car to go, but it's not an all-wheel drive. But however, it feels like an all-wheel drive, and I'm sure you heard this before by whoever owns this car and drives it. And it's just, honestly, overall, it's a very fun car to drive. There's a lot of things about it that you expect to happen, however, they don't, because of clever engineering that Honda has put into this car. For example, there's virtually no torque steer in this car, which is something that you would expect in a front-wheel drive 300+ horsepower configuration, but Honda claims that there's no torque steer in it, and when we launched the car, like, you can kind of tell that here. Peak torque kicks in at about 4.5, so that's where you ideally want to shift. You have gears 3 and 4. Those are your sweet spots, especially when you're merging on the highway, or when you're trying to do any kind of spirited driving. Like, these are your sweet spots, and honestly, it's the fun place to be, actually. When you get up to 5th and 6th, what I like is that 6th is not just an overdrive gear here. You can still, if you're on the highway and you have it in 6th, you can still put your foot down and still, you know, glide forward quite quickly and cut through as well. So in some cars, I mean, I'm sure you know that when you put it in 6th, it's just kind of there as like a gas saver, you know, let's drop the RPMs a little bit. But here in this case, that's not the case here. So again, I'm just coming around. The road conditions are really well here. I mean, it's smooth, but I just want to show you how well it grips. You don't have to worry at high speeds, you know, worry about it spinning out or anything like that. This car, again, it has front-wheel drive. However, I barely experienced any kind of understeer in this car, so it's just something to keep in mind. And just remember, this is a hot hatch 4-door hatchback, so the body, it's not so low to the ground. It's not a low profile car. It's a standard hatchback. It's like slightly lower with bigger rims, so it's funny how that works, because there's a big difference between whether you're driving a regular Civic hatchback and then this car, right? Downshift. Alright guys, so I'm just climbing up this hill here. I just want to show you guys how well this car grips. It's kind of tight corners here, so probably won't make it up to 5th or anything like that, but let me show you guys what it looks like. Yeah, it's a lot of fun driving this car. The braking, let me talk about the braking. It's very powerful. I mean, I was barely putting my brake down over there, and it was still like, it was braking hard. That's just it's just fantastic the way they have it. I mean, again, as I mentioned, it's got the stopping power of an NSX, so that's something to write home about, right? So and again, that auto rev matching downshift, like, it's just so much, it makes it so much more fun and easy to do any kind of performance driving, really. Now those windy roads, I probably wouldn't bring a Mustang, just because they're known to kind of oversteer and flip the tail out. However, this car, again, you have a front wheel drive, so you're able to maneuver in those kind of roads. Again, that wasn't that aggressive. There are a lot more aggressive routes than that, but just wanted to show you guys how well it grips. And I was trying my best not to give in and just, you know, slam the brakes and go down, but yeah, I mean, imagine how this car can perform on a track. Alright guys, so that was it. The 2019 Honda Civic Type R. Overall, it's an exceptional car to drive. Very nice handling, very fun. Overall, great performance. I'm especially pleased with the brakes. It's functional as well. You have 4 doors, you have 4 seats, and under $40,000, you're getting a lot of car here. I know the new generation is right around the corner. Let's see what Honda does with that. Hopefully they can rectify some of our concerns and issues about this generation. But if you're in the used market and you're looking for a car just all around, you're gonna get a great experience out of. This is the car for you, and I guarantee that you will not regret it. So hope you guys enjoyed the video. Tune in next time. Have a great day.